Good evening, neighbors. It is
Evening.
September 8th, 6:30 meeting, the first budget hearing. Roseanne, call the roll, please.
Okay. Mayor Harvey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
I'm here.
Commissioner Ross,
Here.
Commissioner Samaria,
Here.
Commissioner Tudor,
Here.
Commissioner Samari, you want to lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
Okay,
stands,
close the door.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah.
Okay. Our new attorney, Ed Dion, would you like to read the first ordinance, 2020-04, first reading?
Oh, Madam Mayor, can I make a point of order? I'd just like to welcome Ms. Valerie, because I can't pronounce your last name, so I apologize. I just
Ed
want to
Dion.
welcome, and hopefully we'll have a long-lasting relationship with you.
And Valerie's here too, I see.
I see,
you.
that's who I'm talking to. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry.
Commissioner.
Ordinance number 2020-04, an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, establishing the fiscal year 2020-2021 millage rate at 9.70 mils for each $1,000 of assessed valuation upon real and personal property within the village limits of the Village of Biscayne Park, providing for an effective date.
Okay, do we have the
we have
public hearing first?
comments, Mayor.
Roseanne, do we have the public?
For public comments.
I'm sorry?
We have to open for public comments.
Yes. I'll open it to,
Guys, I'm sorry, before you proceed with that, I'm still getting texts from residents who are trying to get in, who I know want to speak. I'm letting them know right now to type the number in. And I just don't want them to miss their opportunity.
Mhm. Mayor, should we give some more time because, you know, the link, not the link, the Zoom link is not working properly.
are there people, excuse me, Roseanne, do you have a list of people that want to talk on that,
Not yet.
on the millage?
No, not yet.
Well, they're not in the meeting, that's the problem. Well, one of them just showed up, I see her on screen now. Well, I'll let you know, the other one's David Raymond. He's trying to get in right now, and I told him to type the number in by hand, so you might see him show up in your waiting room, Roseanne.
Caesar's
Sorry for the interruption.
of everybody that goes to waiting room, he admits immediately, so Caesar is helping me getting everybody as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay, I'll open up public comments for 2020-04.
Okay.
I see
Bobby
Bob's.
Anderson? Mr. Anderson?
You muted, Ms. Anderson?
Who are you calling on, Roseanne?
Bobby Anderson.
Okay, this is Bob Anderson, 11th place, 119th Street.
That's a millage.
And I'm urging the commission not to lower our millage rate. We're losing all kinds of money from other areas, like from the state, etc. And if we go ahead and lower our millage rate, then what you're saying to everybody that lives here, we are not going to go ahead and repair our roads or do anything for the drainage for this budget year. Thank you.
Okay. Let me open here. Chuck Ross.
Good evening, Chuck Ross, 1166 Griffin Boulevard. Want to welcome our new attorneys to the village. I agree with Bob. We maintain the millage at 9.7 as we're going into a period of unknowns as far as state revenue sharing. And also we may have to partially fund the sanitation budget for all we know, because we don't have we have an estimate of what it might cost us since we're still working on the RFP there. So we need to consider that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Let me see on the other page, but I don't see anybody else wants to speak on it.
David Raymond's
Okay.
still trying to get in. He says that number's not working for him, just letting you know.
Okay, I'll close public comments on 2020-04. Do we need a motion on this, Roseanne?
Yes, we need to have a motion.
I would like to make a motion, Mayor, if I may. I'll make a motion to ordinance 2020-04 on a first reading, which sets the millage rate at 9.7 mils.
Okay, I'll second it.
Roll call,
Madam Mayor, if
no discussion?
wanting to low, if we vote for keep it at 9.7, can we still lower the millage in second reading, or it has to be done in the first reading?
I have no idea.
I'm asking the question.
Max knows.
Mayor,
Village
Yes, go ahead, Ed.
you can amend this ordinance on second reading, but you have to make sure that you have sufficient funds available to fund the budget that you're about to approve on first reading. So, you have that ability, but you need to make sure that there's sufficient funds available to fund the budget.
Because thank you, but I thought we had, we cut $300 and something thousand in the budget. Am I correct?
I can't answer that question.
No, I'm not asking, I'm asking other commissions. I thought we cut at the last budget meeting, Paul can answer the question if he can. I thought we cut 300 and something, let me give you the exact figures.
What?
Paul, do you know what he's referring to?
Did we cut $300 and something thousand in the last budget?
Paul, Roseanne, can you unmute Paul?
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, he got it.
Hi.
From budget workshops, the last round balanced the budget back. So there was a reduction in expenses to bring it back with a positive surplus of a few $1,000s, $20,000 or $30,000 off the top of my head. So you didn't actually cut per se. You rearrange the budget so that your capital items and a number of deferred costs would be what I call below the line, which means they're not funded. They would have to come back at a later time when revenues are projected or as reality, not projections. And then at that point, you'd be able to revise your spending plan. So this budget is balanced and balanced against a 9.7 millage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, Commissioner Tudor, I know that the information you were supposed to come back and reference, you brought up about lowering the millage at the last budget, and you were going to have some numbers for us.
Yeah, unfortunately, the county didn't get back to me with the numbers for the specific residences here, but just looking at, just taking an average, it would be tight lowering the millage. I think right now we have excess revenue. Maybe Paul can confirm this. I think it's around, is it around 40 or 45,000? So we don't really have a lot of wiggle room. Even if we took those excess revenues and gave it back to residents, you're talking about that would lower the millage to approximately like 9.5%. There would have to be some other drastic cuts in order to get it to, for example, the rollback rate, I believe, is 8.97. So if you run it up to 9, you're talking about having to cut other budgeted items for a total about 175,000, which I don't think there's enough there to trim to get to the rollback rate. So I think the best that we could do at this point in time with the budget that we have would be going from a 9.7 to the best at this point would be a 9.5. Excuse me. And Paul may be able to, confirm those numbers. But that's just what I was able to come up to doing my own calculations.
That's accurate. Each tenth of a mil, excuse that expression, but from 9.7 to 9.6 to 9.5, each one of those is $24,818.02 to be exact, or 25,000 is a good way to look at it. So if you wanted to reduce a $2.4 million budget by $50,000, that would be what you could do. But then you'd have to reduce, the budget in front of you would balance at that.
Yeah, because I think right now we're looking at an
But-
excess of only a little over 45,000, I believe, right now, currently on this.
Correct.
You're within $5,000 of that balancing. I'm sure we could make a quick adjustment.
Any other discussion on
May I
this?
say something here? Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
have something I
Vice
want to
Mayor.
say. First of all,
Kennedy.
Ginny, before I say what I would like to say, David Raymond got in the meeting quite late because the link wasn't working and he couldn't get the numbers in. He's in the meeting now, and he's texted me and asked me if you would allow him to make his public comment because of the technical difficulties we have with Zoom.
On the millage rate?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
Where is he?
There he is.
Hi, I'm sorry for the tardiness and the confusion, but the link that's out there isn't working. There's it's supposed to be a 1 where there's a 0 or something. But my comment was actually on the budget itself. So I don't know.
Okay.
I just got on. Are you
Yeah,
doing a
it's
separate ordinance
it's another
on the
ordinance.
budget?
The millage.
So
It's a-
can I
that's-
speak when you get to the budget piece?
No, the budget's a separate.
It'll be coming up next.
Okay. Thank you very much. As long as I can just say a couple words. Thank you.
Okay, so let me say a couple of things about reducing the millage rate. I do see that we have some excess revenue in the budget, and we could lower it a bit and eat up some of that excess revenue. But I was under the impression that Paul made it rather clear to us that passing a budget that didn't have any excess revenue would not be the most responsible way to pass a budget. Paul, can you speak to that? That was my understanding of what you told us.
Yeah, so going back to the original message when we created this budget, and it's important to separate a balanced budget from what you've already put into this budget to balance it. Again, we're looking at 50% estimates of a reduction in the state revenue funds. So that is over almost $100,000. So that is a variance that's much more significant than the $50,000 that we're talking about just in concept at this point. So as a budget officer or a finance director, there is no way I could recommend touching your millage rate or this budget from that reason alone, because for the first time in many, many years, you have a volatility in your revenue source, and you don't know next year's revenue at all. So with that,
Right.
from just prudence of proper budgeting, it would be risky.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I was certain that's what I heard you said before. So now my own opinions about decreasing the millage rate. I would like to be able to tell people we lowered the millage rate as much as anybody else would. It would be a very politically expedient thing for me to do, considering I'm running for re-election. However, sitting here tonight, I'm not a candidate for commissioner. I am a commissioner here tonight. And I think it would be irresponsible of me to suggest that we lower the millage rate with the enormous amount of uncertainty that there is. A lot of what went into this budget was really kind of guesswork about the revenue that will be coming in. And it makes me very uneasy because I'm not certain about a lot of those numbers. And on the expenditure side, a lot of this was, we did a decent job trying to figure out our way through this, but we did it without a manager, and we did it without some department heads really putting together a tight budget and doing all the cuts and all the things that should be done. And in my opinion, should have started much earlier than when we started doing it. So we started a process very late. It may be on time per what the village has always done, but for my taste, it started very late in the game and without some key players in place. So there's uncertainty on the revenue side for me. There's uncertainty on the expenditure side. And as unpopular as it may be for me to say this out loud, I just don't think it would be responsible for us to entertain this. If we have a better year than we thought we did, it's certainly something I would want to look at next year. And if we can tighten this budget up a whole lot more next time around, if I'm here to participate in that, that would be a fabulous thing to do. I think there's too much uncertainty. I also want to say that without that additional information that I know Paul is working on getting from us, and I've been in communication with him for the past couple of weeks about that, I think it's not quite a real number to give people. So when you talk about lowering the millage rate by 1/10 of a mill, you know, it's not a number that anyone has any idea what it really means. What people understand are dollars. So if you tell me you're going to lower, look, Dan and my husband and I moved here. We bought going on 5 years ago. So we're on the high end. You know, we have a much higher taxable value than a lot of our neighbors do. And our tax, we pay an enormous tax bill. It's almost $10,000 this year. So trust me, I'd love to lower my own taxes. But 1/10 of a mill doesn't mean anything to me. Something with a dollar sign in front of it means something to me, and we don't have that information to go by. So I think if we had that, and maybe we'll have it before the next meeting, and we can turn that into a real number with a dollar sign on it for residents, I think that would mean a whole lot more than 1/10 of a mill or 2/10 of a mill or 3/10 of a mill. It's such an arbitrary, obtuse thing when people are hearing that. We need to talk dollars to people, and we can do that by the property address when we get that information. Maybe we'll get it before the second hearing. I fear that we may not.
Okay, is there any other comments from the commissioners?
I want to touch on something, and actually, this is the longest we've ever talked about millage in my 10 years on the commission. It usually passes pretty quickly, but just to throw my 2 cents in as well. The summary page that we were given for the budget shows a $45,000, 500 excess revenue over expenditures. Actually, I pointed over the weekend to a 30,000 overestimate of revenue, which had to do with a forfeiture program that we are not going to implement in the coming year. So that would reduce our revenue by 30,000. That leaves us only 15,500 or so excess revenue for this budget as it's proposed. So although our property values increased and we saw a gain in taxes of about $280,000, on the expense, on the other side of non-ad valorem, we saw a reduction in state revenue of 170. Paul said about 50%, so I'm just making it dollars like Max suggested. Reduction in state revenue of 170,000, a reduction in communications tax of 10,000. That's 180 right there. And we have that RFP out for sanitation services. We don't know what that is going to end up costing us, although we already had to approve the assessment because of the timing issue. So we may end up having to fund sanitation services 50, 70, who knows how much. Really, it's not to reduce the millage by a 0.1 or a 0.2 is not an appreciable difference in a homeowner's pocketbook, as I said at our last meeting, but it has a huge impact. A loss of $24,000, almost $25,000 per 0.1 mil in the village is a huge impact. And it would mean most likely having to let people go because there's nowhere else to cut. Our budget is bare bones as it is. So good friend of mine would always want us to go to 10 mils, which is the top. And a bit of a psychological issue with going to 10 mil, but I think that we should certainly stick to the 9.7 and hope for the best next year. We'll have new management in place. Maybe they could find efficiencies and, you know, we could work something different next year. Or I should say, you all will work something different next year because I won't be making that decision. I'll trust you to do it.
Thank you. Roseanne, do you want to do a vote, please?
Okay, Mayor Halpin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross,
Yes.
Commissioner Samaria,
No.
Commissioner Tudor,
Yes.
The fuck?
4-1. Mayor Schuster.
Okay. Mr. Dion, would you like to read ordinance 2020.05, first reading?
The hell?
Ordinance number
Someone is using
2020-05.
foul language.
Somebody's using foul language, yes.
Somebody speaking.
Ordinance number 2020-05, an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, adopting a budget for fiscal year 2020-2021 for the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to a public hearing on 2020-05.
Okay, we have David Raymond.
You're muted.
Hi, David Raymond, 11520 Northeast 9th Avenue. Just a couple of things on the CITT budget. There's still an error on page 5 of 6, which shows for this year's figures that the storm cleaning had $35,000 in there for cleaning the drains. That was 15 this year. I know I brought this up at the last meeting. I just don't think it didn't change. So that should have been 15 last year and 15 this year. And then on the figure for the drain construction for storm drains, it said 0 for this year, but it should have said 35,000. That's where those got swapped, I guess. The 35 went into the cleaning budget for this year, but this current year. So those just, I know it probably doesn't make a difference in this year's figures, but I do want to thank you all for supporting, putting money in there for doing the cleaning, as well as for the construction of the drains. I know ours was already plotted out by the engineer and there's plans for it. So I do hope that that gets done. And I also, in terms of the cleaning the drains, I know I brought this up with David Hernandez when he was here, and after we had the big storm. I don't know if the new manager might consider, in terms of spending the dollars that we have in the budget for this coming year, of doing some kind of cooperative agreement with North Miami. I think I emailed the commission about this back when we had the storm as well. They have the trucks, they have the staff. I can't imagine keep them busy all year round, but maybe there's some kind of interlocal agreement that could be done with them for the drainage. So just throwing that out there to put on the new manager's plate. And the other thing is, there's in the budget for this year and last year, there's still $2,500 for the cat neutering program with the county. And we've been doing that without spending any money at the county. So I don't know if you can recapture that money and use it anyplace else, but just letting you know that money's just been in there and not being used. So thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yes, Janie Anderson.
Thank you. Janie Anderson, 11th Place. Sorry, and 119th Street. I just want to thank you guys for holding the millage at this point. Tempting though I know it always is to reduce it, it sounds like it would have been an incredible risk when we have not a stable handle on revenue, and thanks to sanitation, not a stable handle on expenses. Trying to make a nice gesture to all of us in the community could really have backfired. I did some quick math, just dealing with my own taxable value. We would have saved $50 annually if you went down 3 mills. I did 2 other friends' homes who are newer residents. One of them would have saved $140, one of them would have saved $200. That's not worth the risk. Thank you for holding that in. On another note, we do have a code that requires property owners to keep their parking spaces and driveways in good order, well taken care of. Okay, we can't say that's what's happening over at the rec center. Now, I know this is a really bad time to ask you to find more money for something, but if there is any way to at least get started on that small improvement, if we're asking residents to do something, we need to lead the way. And right now, with the rec center primarily closed, would seem to be an opportune time to get started. Unfortunately, due to the cancellation of Halloween, you've got $2,000 you could start with right there that's already in the rec center budget. Then I believe David Raymond mentioned a couple of other thousand. I mean, it's not a lot. It's not going to do it all, but it would really be a good gesture to have the city kind of, again, lead by example. Thanks.
Okay.
Are there any other public comments?
Yes, Chuck Ross. Mr. Ross? you want
Good
me-
evening, Chuck Ross, 11166, still living in the same place. I have a couple of comments. Yes, we need to have maintained the millage at 9.7, so all the reasons stated earlier, so thank you for doing that. I think it would have impacted per mill, it's something like, I'm gonna guess in the average household, would be $38. You're talking about somewhere between, like Janie said, would have impacted her 50, I think. That's within the realm of what we were talking about. Really not a significant impact and not worth changing the millage. Also, I'd like to mention about the CITT fund. Paul's going to talk about this, I hope, later, but we got some really good news that it appears that we were able to document $406,000 of the approximate $437,000 that was disallowed. And Paul and his associate Jennifer, Paul is our finance director, I'm sorry, Paul Winklejohn, our finance director, and his associate were able to take the information that that was assembled partially by me, most of the documents by me and by my wife Rox Ross in a report, and get it to CITT in a very short time, along with some other compliance issues that were not being taken care of by the prior manager, Christian, or the interim manager while he was interim manager, David Hernandez, which were actually, some of them weren't that difficult to comply with. So I want to thank Paul and his firm for taking care of that. Thank you, Paul.
Any other comments?
No, I don't see anybody else.
Can we have a motion on the first reading of 2020-05?
We have Mr. Bobby Anderson.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate what Jenny Anderson said, and I completely concur. If you look at the rec center, especially over the area closer to on 9th, 150, this is where everybody parks that are using the basketball court or having picnics there, and it's you know, it's just raw dirt because there's cars keep parking there. Obviously, there's no other parking. And I know at one time was talking about putting in turf block in there, and I concur. We need to start moving forward and start putting in the proper parking around the rec center. Start someplace. Every budget year can add a little bit more turf block, which has a great drainage, and work your way around the rec center where you deem parking is necessary without tearing up all the landscape. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, now I don't see.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing for 2020-05. Can we have a motion on that, please?
I'd like to make a motion, if I may, Mayor, make a motion to approve on first reading ordinance number 2020-05, setting the budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, and for us to discuss the details.
Do we have a second on that? I'll second it. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll take a vote. Roseanne?
Okay.
Wait, I have a couple of just comments, general comments. I want to, our budget tasks the manager with presenting a budget, and I want to thank Paul Winklejohn and his Sharon for stepping in to that role and leading us through the workshops and the budget hearings while we experience this gap in management. I also want to thank Roseanne for taking on the added responsibilities on top of a busy desk. And I want to thank Police Chief Cabrera and Commander Walsh for taking a hard look at the police expenditures. It's our largest department, and they were able to trim about $46,000 from the police budget. And that's what helped us bring this to a balanced budget. They did all that while continuing service and maintaining a reliable fleet in our police vehicles. Did I have anything else? No, just general on the CITT budget. Now that I hope we get funds released that had been withheld, I look forward to actually doing some improvements around the village in our streets and drainage, and trust the new manager to do that for us. I do have one technical question on the ordinance itself.
Before you move, Commissioner Ross, I'm sorry to interrupt. Vice Mayor Kennedy, some noise is coming from your mic. Can you mute yourself?
Okay, well, okay, then let me know when I can speak, because I don't know what the noise is, but you keep muting and I can't speak.
Yourself when you want to speak. All right? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Ross, go ahead.
Yeah. So on section 6 of the ordinance itself, it says, from time to time, the village commission may transfer funds from one fund, account, or department to another, as the necessity for the same may occur. My understanding has always been that although you may transfer within a department, the management would not have the ability to transfer funds from department to department, and certainly not from fund to fund, like not from sanitation, not from general to the sanitation fund, which is an enterprise fund, or to say the road fund, which receives its revenue from somewhere else. I don't know how that phrase, transfer funds from one fund to another, made its way into the ordinance, but I don't believe it was part of prior ordinances, and a technical change in the law. If somebody could explain it to me, I'd appreciate it.
Does anybody have the answer on that?
Attorney New, please.
Commissioner, the commission has the authority to transfer monies between funds. You said management, and you're right, management does not have that authority, but the city commission, by budget amendment, can certainly transfer monies between funds. And this is just giving you the ability to do so in the event that eventuality happens.
Well, but the rest of the sentence says that it may occur without the requirement of an amendment. And we've done budget amendments, but they've always been done by ordinance at the same level as we approve the budget.
You're muted, Ed.
Yep. Commissioner, I agree with you on that, and I would recommend that last clause be removed. The clause without being required to amend the terms and provisions of this ordinance, I would recommend that be removed, and we'll delete it on second reading.
Okay.
So I would suggest that that the motion be amended to amend that section 6 of the ordinance to delete that last phrase.
So I would amend my motion to delete the phrase from section 6, the phrase it says without being required to amend the terms of the provisions of this ordinance. And look for a second.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'll change my second on that. Roseanne, would you like to take a vote, please?
Yes, Mayor Hoppin?
Yes.
No. I still have some things. You're not voting on this ordinance, are you?
No.
What?
No, I have some things I wanted to say. She had me muted, and I have some things I'd like to say real quickly. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, a couple of quick things. In the sanitation budget, let me pull it up here. This may just be a keystroke error, an input error, but I'm a little confused about something in the sanitation fund. Line 34. I believe the contract service amount for Waste Pro is correct, but it says it's based on 1296 homes at $28.10 per month. And the rate, the Waste Pro rate right now is $37.10. So I don't know if it makes a difference in the budget, if that is an error or not, but does that need to be adjusted?
Paul, can you answer that, please?
Yeah, that $28 is the raw number that is charged by them. The actual amount per homeowner is a little over $40 per month. So that terminology isn't properly explained.
Okay, it doesn't affect the number on the far right. It's
No,
just the backup
the
number.
total amount of the annual assessment is correct. It's just talking about
It's
how
correct.
it's divided.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, understood. Okay. If anyone would entertain a conversation about the rec center budget and taking a bite out of the parking apple, I would be willing to take a look at that item, at that department. I have to agree with both Andersons who spoke out on the topic of the fact that our parking is not up to code at our own facility, yet we enforce code on our residents. And that one area is particularly bad. So I think the number was $20,000 to get that small section done there. Look, I see both sides. I see waiting for the year that we can budget the full amount to get it all done at one time. If you're going to do something as simple as turf block, that it's not like you're not going to find that material again, and we could take a small bite out of it and do a bite every year and get it done over the next couple of years, I see the value in that as well. So if anybody else would want to have that conversation about where we could find $20,000 in that budget or elsewhere to move around to get some parking done in fiscal 21, I'd be willing to have that conversation. If I'm the only one, then we can move on.
Commissioner, Madam Mayor, doesn't that fall under the CITT? So if we're getting money back from the CITT, wouldn't that fall under the CITT?
No.
No? I'm just asking a question.
Okay, any other comments? Roseanne, you want to continue with the vote, please?
If I could, if I may, Mayor, in response to the Vice Mayor's request, I'm looking at line item 46, which is repairs and maintenance. We do have an allowance there for the athletic field, $20,000. And we traditionally have not spent $20,000 on the athletic field. Now that it has been at rest for all of these many months, I don't foresee that they would have to spend that kind of money on the field, although we do want to keep our consultant to keep up the grass on the field. Maybe if we just change that description, athletic field, to something else that might encompass turf blocking a section where just north of the basketball courts, I think that's the area that they're talking about. Would that?
Yeah.
That apply?
Any other comments?
So, yeah, let me respond to that. Thank you for bringing that up, Rox. That's an interesting idea. So you're saying that money we could keep it if it was within that budget. There's a total of $40,000 in that in line 46, repairs and maintenance. So if we just called athletic fields / parking surfaces, or I don't know, call them all horizontal surfaces. I mean, they're all, they are horizontal surfaces. Maybe we just amend that and at least get parking in the repairs and maintenance budget, get the words there. So at some point during the year, the new manager could, you know, use that money to get it done because at least it's specified there. Am I understanding that's what you're saying, Rox?
Yeah, also within that line item, there's repairs and maintenance for building, $10,000 allocated. And
Right, that's what I'm saying.
we
Yeah.
only have 3. We've only spent 3,000. So between those 2 line items,
Yeah.
I think that there could be capacity to do the turf block, a section of it.
Yeah, there's $40,000 there total. So then would the rest of you consider changing athletic fields to athletic fields? Or, you know, what we could do is say athletic fields, change it to $10,000 and add parking and add $10,000 there, keep it a total 40,000 repair and maintenance budget. Everything is detailed, everything's listed there with some amount of money. That money can all be moved around easily by the manager without having to ask us. So that's another way to do it, right, Rox?
Yes, that'll do it.
Does anybody object to
Yeah,
that?
so would,
I wouldn't object to that.
Commissioner
So
Tudor?
so that would entail,
it's going to be athletic field / parking space, parking.
Parking.
I think a better way to do it might be keep athletic fields there, but change it to $10,000.
Yes.
And below custodial surfaces, add parking and add $10,000 there. So line 46 is still totaling $40,000.
I
You
got it.
just decrease athletic fields to 10 and parking in there for 10. What does everybody else think about that? At least it's in there. It's all in one. Okay.
I agree.
Commissioner Tudor?
Yeah, I have no problem if you want to do that. If you just want to retitle it, you know, landscape surfacing, you know, whatever you want to do.
I like the idea of breaking it up. So Commissioner Kennedy, I agree with you. Break it up is much better than having it just one word.
Okay.
I think so. I like to see the word parking there because next year when the budget's done again, then parking is in front of everybody's eyes again and they're reminded, oh yeah, we took a bite out of that. Let's take another bite this year. Keep it in the budget.
All right, Commissioner Ross, you want to change your motion to include the changes and for 2020-05?
Yes, as amended.
Okay, and as amended, seconded. Roseanne?
Okay, Mayor Hopping,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross,
Yes.
Commissioner Samaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Tudor.
Yes.
Thank you, 5-1.
Thank you.
Make a
Okay,
motion.
is there-
I make a motion to adjourn the first budget hearing for 2020, 2021.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye.